What is up, guys? We're back in our video, and it is time for the high-level Cloak and Dagger guide from a high-level Cloak and Dagger player. Now, Cloak and Dagger is a character that, in my opinion, isn't quite used to her full potential in most of the cases when people are playing it. It's often seen as the just spam left click and the auto aim does everything for you type character. And so the actual way you're supposed to play this character isn't very utilized by 90% of the people I see playing Cloak and Dagger. On a very, very high level, I'm seeing people start to realize this. And I'm actually seeing some very good Cloak and Dagger people that were not playing Cloak and Dagger this season. They're now playing, and they're doing exactly this playstyle, and it's working so well. Some of them are even playing Cloak and Dagger every game and having insane win rates. She's a very, very strong support right now. I think Cloak and Dagger is a actual contender against Luna Loki. She is that powerful, especially with how quickly she gets her ult, which we're going to touch on. So we're going to start off with Dagger's abilities, which is when you are in the girl form. So her basic left click is auto aim, and it doesn't heal for that much, but it's extremely valuable because it allows you to easily heal any of your own teammates that are slippery, maybe behind weird angles. You have an Iron Fist running around. You know, you can easily land heals on him. There's a Spider-Man trying to fly away. You can auto aim him down. Same thing with a Panther. Or lots of different flyers that might be too oppressive. Maybe you're behind a corner and you need to get a flyer. Don't underestimate how much damage you could do with your actual basic left click. Another important thing to realize about the left click is it actually also heals you. So let's say you take damage right here, and your other healer is here taking damage. You can stand next to the healer, cuddle with them basically, and heal both of you. And so if they're also healing you, you will heal through most damage there is. If you bubble, like, you can survive a Psylocke ult by doing this. You bubble, you stand directly on top of your healer, and you spam your left click. You both get healed. There's tremendous amount of healing on yourself. And so it's important to remember that this also works on maybe tanks that you want to get a little bit close to. Maybe you're behind cover and your tank's right here, you know, and you want to get a little bit close to get some of that healing. The next ability is probably her most essential in terms of how you use it, and it is her right-click bubble. Her bubble is so valuable, and there are two main ways that you use this bubble. Number one, if the enemy team has divers, and you know you are vulnerable, they may dive you. You need to be extremely cautious if you plan to use it to heal your team, because you need to know you are very vulnerable now. You have 250 HP as opposed to a Luna's 275. You don't have the Loki swap. You can't just swap away. You can't fly away like a rocket. You have to switch forms and use this ability, but besides that, you have no self-healing besides your bubble. So you need to be very careful about how you use your bubble. So if, let's say, they don't have divers. If they don't have divers, you want to use your bubble to heal your actual tanks on the front line. Never use it on like a side DPS. You always want to heal them with your left click. You want to drop down this bubble. You could even drop it down preemptively where you know your tanks are going to be fighting. That way you don't drop it. You don't necessarily want to just drop it where they are, but where you know they're going to be for the duration of the bubble. Like if your tanks are fighting right here, you want to drop your bubble maybe a bit closer to the front, actually. Maybe you want to put the bubble right there if the enemy team's over there and you know your tanks might be pushing forward. But that also brings me to the next ability, which is a very powerful ability to use in combination with your bubble, right? And it is your E. Your E, or your light force field, whatever it's called. I believe it's a light explosion. It is extremely powerful because not only does it heal them the moment it hits them, it provides a healing boost. They now take more healing from not just you, but for your other healer. So if you have both tanks that are low, drop your bubble and your E, and it is a extremely large amount of healing. So one of Cloak and Dagger's biggest strengths is people look at how much output a Luna has with her clap. Well, they don't really talk about how much output a Cloak and Dagger actually has with this right here. This is just the bubble. That is an insane amount of healing, because the healing boost plus the bubble, not even using her left click, it is an insane amount of healing. It is very powerful, and you want to always try to land on as many of your team as you can with it. And to save it when you really need it, because it will completely top off your team 90% of the time. So when they do have divers, though, you want to use your E more on your tanks without the bubble. Unless their divers are dead or you know they're not going to be diving you. This is where you need to think about where they're located. Are you about to be dived at any point in time? Within 10 seconds, the cooldown of the bubble. If you're not going to do that, then you can drop your bubble. But you need to be very careful that you know this, because if you do get dived without your bubble, like for example, for a Spider-Man, if you get dived by a Spider-Man, you could drop your bubble, and you could actually contest the Spider-Man by switching forms, or contest the Iron Fist, or contest the Black Panther. But you need your bubble to provide that self-healing. Not just for you, but for your other healer as well. Or whatever maybe squishy target DPS is with you. It's very, very effective. So next, we're going to talk about Cloak's actual abilities, which is when you switch to Cloak, who is the man that has his dark abilities. When you're on this character, he is extremely powerful for cycling in damage to actually help your front line, which will lead me to, after this segment, we will talk about the strengths of Cloak and where most people go wrong. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the abilities. And your right click basically does that. It makes you go invisible. And this is extremely important for avoiding divers or avoiding ultimates. I always use this preemptively to avoid ultimates. Very rarely am I caught by a mag ult or a Phoenix ult, because the moment you see it, you swap forms and you just wait until the Phoenix gets closer. And you can even cloak your teammates, which is very important. Right there, it also cloaks your teammates. So if you have a Luna next to you, or another healer next to you, or anyone really that's going to be hit by that ult, you could use this to avoid it. You could avoid lots of ults, including like Strange ults as well. So if you see a Doctor Strange flying in, you can preemptively swap forms and avoid the ult. You can avoid pretty much every ult in the game by doing this. So the next ability is going to be his E, and it is extremely valuable on the front line, pressuring the enemy's tanks. It does two main functions. Number one, it blinds the enemy so they can't see. Number two, it actually causes them to take more damage. So not only is this great when you're being contested by a diver and you go invisible, so you get contested by a diver, you drop your bubble, you maybe go invisible, but if not, if they're a bad diver like an Iron Fist where they're not dealing much damage to you, you could throw out your E, blind them, and then use your left click and actually deal damage to them. It's very, 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 very powerful, especially on the front line which we're going to get into in just one moment, is your basic rotation that you want to be using when you're actually playing this character. So the strongest rotation you want to have when playing this character in the actual game is you want to stay up more closer to your tanks. Like, let's say your tanks are right here. You want to stay much closer, but behind cover so you can't get shot. That way you're within range to cycle in your E's. And it's extremely important that you keep in mind, a little tip is when you actually change forms... Hold on, I have no ability. When you actually change forms, you reload your ammo. So a great rotation is you spam all your ammo, and when you need to reload, you swap forms, shoot your E, it'll help your tanks out, and then swap back. Drop your bubble, do whatever you want to do with your tanks, and keep them healed. Always keeping in mind your healer, which might be behind you as well. Keep in mind their health and how they're doing. So her ult is very powerful, because not only does it heal everyone on it, it also damages the enemy and increases the damage they take. In theory, it should be stronger than, let's say, a Luna ult, because it's a damage amp, and it is a healing at the same time. Now, you have to be very, very careful when you're using it, because you can, unlike a Luna, you don't get the overhealth. You could die in the ult, and it also heals for less. You could die to a Mag or an Iron Man, or a lot of people, or a lot of different things you could die to. A Bucky gripping you out. A Punisher with a rocket damage amp, even a Punisher shotgunning you in the head while two other people are also damaging you, that would be enough to kill you. You need to be extremely careful when ulting, and the most important thing you need to keep in mind is the path you're ulting in, right? If there's a Magneto up there and you know he has ult, you need to coordinate with your mag to bubble you. If you don't have a mag, then you need to path yourself and think about your path in advance to where he won't kill you. Maybe that involves going up like this, blinding the mag, and then ulting backwards into your team. That way you can escape the bubble from the mag. But you always want to look for like little doorways or little rooms you could go in where the mag would not be able to actually hit you. And so I'm going to show you this when we go into the demonstration part just after this. But one more tip I want to mention is always be in cloak form before you actually ult. The reason why is because then once you're done the ult, if you need to, you could fade very quickly to avoid like a Bucky grip, Punisher damage, mag ult. You can avoid things immediately versus if you're in dagger form, you'll finish your ult and then you'll need to swap. And that extra bit of time could be the difference between life and death. So here I'm going to move on to a demonstration portion where I want to show how I use some of my abilities in one of my top 500 matches. So starting off, you see I have all of my cooldowns. And I get damaged by the squirrel girl. I don't want to risk getting shot again and waiting for my Luna to heal me because the rest of my team has pretty decent HP. I drop the bubble on myself so I don't have to worry about myself, and I immediately use my cooldowns on my tank to make sure they're topped off. And then we see that Emma is now ulting me. So what do? I swap forms immediately, and I use my fade, my right click, to get away from that ult and completely avoid it. And I think, yeah, right there. I moved myself to a better position to avoid the ult. That is the basic gist of how you want to rotate. If you also notice my positioning as well, if we go back a little bit here, you'll notice where I am is I'm much closer to the tanks than my Luna is. That's because should they be taking heavy damage, I could use my E, which has limited range, and then drop my bubble on them right after. However, I had to reposition because the Emma in the top left got a good angle on me and started ulting. So I used my fade to get out and reposition. Here's another little example I want to show of simply me using my fade once again to change my positioning. So I noticed the squirrel girl throws her ult. I don't even want to risk it. I swap forms, and I take the high ground just in case it bounced off something and came back and hit me. And I noticed it was not going to hit me, so then I went right back down. It's really important to use your fade in those kinds of situations to just put yourself in the clear. So now we're going to move on to an example of how I use my ult. So the enemy mag has their ult. So what I do is I use my fade to reposition myself, and I have my pathing set to avoid his ult, because they can't just go up and throw the ult. They need to generate a bit of charge, so you don't need to go into a room right away. But I get myself into a better position right near the front, not too far to where my team can't get in it easily, and I immediately start my pathing to the right. Bam, bam, bam. Now I'm already safe from the mag, and I continue one more stretch in there just to be safe. Now my team has a clear path with my ult to move forward, and I just protected myself, and I'm not going to die to the mag ult. That is exactly how you want to use the ult. Now, I could have blinded the mag first as well, but I didn't feel like I needed to in this situation. Sometimes, if the mag is very close to you, you might as well throw your blind, your E onto him, just to give you that extra chance of surviving. One more thing I want to mention before we get in this next example is when you're playing Cloak and Dagger, you need to be aggressive. Especially when you know you're not going to die, or most likely not going to die. You need to be aggressive because you do have strong offensive capabilities. So, in this example here, I want to show... my tank on the front sadly dies right here. Unfortunately, dies a bit too fast for me to get my abilities out. And so now let's look at what I do. First off, I see the squirrel ult coming for me and Cloak. For me and Luna, sorry. I swap forms and I fade to protect both of us. It gave her that little bit of speed boost because it also speed boosts your team. It gave her that little bit of speed boost she needed to jump out of the ult. And I immediately, because I know in this situation Mag doesn't have his ult. Now I was cutting it a little bit close. He was at 78%. But I had a path set. Because look at where the Mag was positioned. Now, I could have, and I probably should have, threw my E on him. I'll admit that. I should have threw my E on him in this situation, just to give me that extra chance. But what I do is I immediately ult, and I go all the way through to the back line, not just to carve a path for my team, but for myself. Because now, what do? I swap to damage. I immediately throw my E on the squirrel girl, land the kill. And despite them attacking me, I am staying offensive right now. And I'm still, until they ult on their Cloak, and then I'm like, okay, their Cloak ulted, I'm not going to land any kills. I immediately start moving back to try to get out. And I swap forms, I drop my bubble down, I'm back on the defensive. So that's what you need to remember about not just using your ult, but in situations in general where you know you're most likely safe and there's a target you think you can kill. You want to swap forms and you want to be aggressive. Guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and turn the bell for notifications so you can see when my next video is. As well as check out the links in the description for my Twitch and my Discord. We talk about all sorts of things there. As well as check out channel memberships. I have those up as well. And I truly thank you guys for watching. And thank you to all my supporters. It means a lot. I do want to keep making videos and streaming, so your support means the world. And as always, guys, take care.